What's up, everyone? Welcome to another Down on the Island bonus presentation of Down Once More. I'm your host, Matt, and we are here to kind of get my reactions, thoughts to episode 25 of Love Island Season 7. Love Island USA episode. I just got finished with it. Kind of my gut reactions. First initial thought, this was one of the slowest episodes of the season so far. I felt like we had a lot of promise and build up. They did a fantastic job with their first look that they released earlier today of clipping things together out of context to make it seem like shit was going to go down. And then I felt like tonight's episode was a bit of a dud, for better or for worse. This was the chat episode. This is what we haven't had much of this season, where they're just chatting, having conversations with other Islanders. And what this episode really showed me overall is that there are not really any great connections this year in the villa. Like Sierra and Nick, they officially closed things off and coupled up this episode. That's like the closest we've got. People were going in for Shelly and Ace. There's a lot of people online that are Ace haters. I feel like the last couple episodes, the kind of online discourse around Shelly has switched. Now, I think with the whole Shelly Huda thing is a little bit blown out of proportion. And I will say, Shelly, one of my favorites. This episode, I feel like she does have a little bit of a blind spot for everything that happened. So, I'm going to do things a little bit differently. I'm not going to do a full breakdown, recap of the entire episode. I'm just going to talk on what some of the highlights were and what stood out to me. We're going to keep it a little shorter tonight. Famous last words from me. But I think kind of main groupings that we saw after the challenge, everyone was kind of off in their couples or with their different groups chatting. So we had the Casa boys together, we had the Casa girls together and chatting, and then we had the different sects of the OG girls kind of chatting. Huda with her gang, kind of trying to get some comfort. Shelly with her crew, Alondria, Sierra, and them. Nick and the boys kind of chatting. And I don't know, not much came out of that whole thing. Ace and Shelly started having some conversations. We started seeing a little bit more friction from them and kind of their whole arc this episode. It was Ace being kind of hurt that she's still exploring things romantically and trying to build like a genuine emotional connection outside of challenges. And then Shelly comparing it to Ace making out with everyone during the challenge, saying she wasn't doing that. She was just kind of singled out Chris. And even she wasn't going all in and doing all that like Ace was. I can see it from both sides. I can understand not enjoying the extent to which he was making out with everyone in the challenge. However, I think Ace's feelings are very valid in this one, saying like, hey, I get that, but that was in the challenge. Like, you chose Chris, went back and kissed him multiple times after you are trying to explore a connection with him outside the villa. And you're not wanting to close things off between us. You're wanting to explore and get things open. And during their conversation, Shelly's saying, well, you were the one who said you wanted to explore. So I'm just kind of following your lead. You want to explore? I'm exploring. You can't be mad at that. Fair, but then I feel like her being upset about him making out with people during the challenge or seeming like a little bit put off or trying to compare it, I feel like those aren't the same situation. Ace's feelings about her and Chris, where they had a connection in Casa, she almost brought him back. She was still kind of exploring that connection. We didn't see Chris and Shelly talk at all this episode, though. I don't know if that's an edit or they just didn't really, but I thought that was interesting. And so this was kind of a rocky road for Shelly and Ace this episode. Ace kind of expressing in the talking heads too that he's wanting to get closer to closing things off. He doesn't feel like they're getting there. And then when Nick and Sierra come back from their date and Nick's talking about how excited he was and how happy and closing things off and kind of expressing like a little bit of jealousy, saying he wishes that were him. I absolutely love like Ace love him, hate him. I've gone back and forth on him this season. I can't decide. I kind of lean a little bit more towards he is very manipulative and knows how to make things sound good while still being manipulative, and kind of toying with emotions. But when he does his like goofing around play voice, if you've been watching it, you know what I'm talking about. But I love those moments. So I feel like Ace and Shelly, rocky this episode. Not Shelly to having a conversation with Sierra at the very end, just saying she didn't really want to talk to Ace, didn't really want to talk to Chris, didn't want to talk to Huda. She just wanted to kind of save her own energy. She didn't have the energy for that. And Sierra saying, yeah, that's valid. You go, girl. Hold that in. Do that. And we saw it right after the challenge too. Huda, towards the beginning of this episode, Huda pulled Shelly for a chat, wanted to talk to her, clear the air a little bit, and Shelly says, okay. And then when they get over by the daybed, she's like, you know what? No, we're not going to do this tonight. I'm still frustrated, irritated. I don't want to say something I shouldn't. Let's talk tomorrow. Huda being like, okay, clearly upset by it, which is fair. Like, I felt like those were valid feelings. And I felt like at the beginning of this episode, there were moments that did show that Huda has made some progress, where she took some accountability, showed some awareness. She said in that moment during the challenge, she was just thinking about herself. She's like, I should have thought about other people probably, but I was just thinking about myself in that moment. I thought that was a moment of self-awareness and kind of clarity for her. And I do think instead of like pushing Shelly, she did a pretty good job. There were a couple moments where she got a little bit in the poor me territory with her conversations, but I understand being upset, and her and Shelly, she feels like they just have this bond from being OGs from the beginning, and everything with that. And then that kind of Shelly just being mad at her when she didn't think she did anything wrong. And then Alondria was very cold to her, which Shelly and Alondria, they're each other's girls, other OGs, the first two that walked in together from the very beginning, I believe. And like Huda went and talked to her, and she's like, just like, am I a horrible person? And Alondria's like, I wouldn't say a terrible person, but you did a bit much. And then Alondria just kind of made it an excuse and left. I felt like that was awkward. I felt bad for Huda in that moment. But then Amaya came up and she's like, how'd your convo go? I was like, it didn't happen. She said she didn't want to talk to me. Isn't exactly how it went down. Like, yes, she said she didn't want to talk to you tonight. She wanted to talk the next day. The next day, that convo never happened. Huda said she wanted to give Shelly her space. She figured she'd come to her when it was time. They never have a conversation, never clear the air. And you see that Shelly's still mad at Huda. And I feel like there had to have been something that was cut that we didn't see between the edits, something extra. Because what we saw, yeah, Huda's grinding, shaking on him, making out with him. But she was doing that with everyone. I get that Ace was pulled out and singled up. That was because he was coupled with Shelly, and Huda and Chris were together and pulled them. So, I don't know. But let's stay on the Huda train. Huda and Chris's relationship. I thought it was about to implode. And how they made it look in the preview was that Chris was going to be like, hey, listen here, and kind of check her at the end. That didn't happen. I also don't think her behavior necessarily needed it. We started to get Pancake Gate round 2 this episode, because Chris next morning brings both Shelly and Huda breakfast, and he gave Shelly hers first, and hers had a flower in the middle. Huda's didn't. Huda felt some type of way about it. It's talking to the girls. It's like, he gave her 2 pancakes and me 1. He gave her a flower and me none. I'm like, oh man, we're counting pancakes. We're making a big deal about it. But the flower, definitely valid, because that showed he was giving more effort to Shelly than her. But then she pulls him and is talking to him about it. I thought Ian Sterling, great moments this episode. He's like, Huda's upset with her man about pancakes again. Am I having deja vu? Because we all thought, here we go again. And she's like, it made me feel like a side hoe and that you're clearly showing favoritism. I could see that. And that she felt very left out. The difference we saw between Chris and Jeremiah's reactions to that is Jeremiah's reactions like, are you dead ass? And getting like a little bit more defensive and trying to justify his actions, which We don't see everything that happens in there. I could get feeling defensive there. Could you respond better? Absolutely. I feel like Chris was more reassuring and things like that than she needed. But then Huda making comments like, I don't get why she's mad at me. I don't want her to be mad at me. She's my girl. And then she's like if I was ugly, would it make it better? I'm not. That seems like weird compliment fishing. Some weird moments with that. But I don't know. At the end of the episode, Chris and Huda are talking, and Chris is saying, they're talking in the speakeasy. Chris says he thinks he's going to take a step back from Shelly because he really fucks with Huda and wants to explore that more. Send the talking head. He's not really getting Shelly's not reciprocating his energy, and so he just wants to explore things with Huda. He's not someone who just thinks time to things that he doesn't see things coming back out. And so just said, hey, I want to focus more on you. Huda feeling reassured, validated, sweet moment in the speakeasy. Was funny though, Chris. Huda's like, what's your type? And he's like, well, I always just attract emotionally unstable women. And she's like, am I emotionally unstable? And he's like, I don't know yet. And he's like, nah, you don't seem emotionally unstable. And she's like, I don't think I am. Okay, whatever. I feel like they had a sweet conversation. Maybe they will work it as a couple. I feel like he's handling her well, and he's able to be calming and like reassuring, and so far not get like defensive and argumentative through it. So maybe they'll be a good couple. Do I see them going to the end? No. But man, we got some weak couples this season. Andrina and Brian are having issues. Him saying that their conversations are boring as hell, which I feel like is rude to say to the other boys. But hey, maybe that's the case. We haven't really seen many of their conversations, which kind of tells me a little bit like, yeah, maybe they aren't having like deep or meaningful conversations. Maybe they don't have much in common. Maybe it was just the attraction, and the producers like, we can't put any of these convos in here because nothing is happening. It's doing nothing for us. I don't know. Then I'm trying to go through the couples. We don't see like anything with Austin and Jade in this episode. Clark and Taylor have a little conversation towards the end where Clark's kind of asking him like, how do you feel after that challenge? He kind of answered right. He's like, well, I was trying to be respectful of you, feeling something, but I really enjoy your energy, saying that he's feeling her. And she's like, okay, are you and Alondria, do you still plan to explore things? And he says yes, which was not the answer she wanted to hear, but I appreciate him being honest. And he kind of explained, he's like, I told her that with you, I had the feelings of like, I feel like a little kid. I feel like something I haven't felt before. And so I told her that. So he's honest. He did tell Alondria that, which I feel like had to kind of hurt for her to hear, but he's being honest in that regard. I still can't get over with the Shark. I want the stark contrast of him, every kiss he does, like just puckering up, duck face kisses, and then you got Huda sticking her tongue down to her chin, just licking everyone's face when she goes in for a kiss. Like, And it was really apparent when she did it for, who was it? Was it Elan? No, who was going in to kiss and then pulling away the last minute? Whoever was doing that. And she just goes, stuck her tongue all the way out, and it was so apparent. Yeah, big ass tongue. But I feel like Clark and Taylor, I do feel like I really like Taylor and Alondria together, but I didn't really feel like a spark and connection there. I get a little bit more of that with Clark. He seems more like at ease and comfortable. So do with that as you will. And like Sierra and Nick, they had some good conversations. They got to go on a date. This is only the second like one-on-one date that we've seen this season. We had Huda and Jeremiah back in like week 1 or 2, and then nothing. There was the bombshells, went to the date to the island, and then this one. I think those are the only 3 like dates that we've seen, which is wild for how deep in the season that we are. We haven't seen the hideaway besides when Sierra and Charlie came in. And then we haven't been seeing dates. And then this date is just they took bikes and a picnic basket, which it turns out Nick had said that would be like an ideal date for him. Picnic, doing something exciting, having a picnic, looking over the water. And that's what they got. But they had a good like conversation. He brought up how he's really pissed off about how Elan acted. And he had a conversation with Elan earlier. which was and get a little bit dick measuring. I'm all good with communicating things and your feelings with it, but it seemed a little like protective, which I get it. He feels strongly about Sierra, but Nick has been, I feel like, the person who has most been like exploring every connection that comes in. Him and Sierra have always wound up back together, so we have seen that. So I do feel like right now they're still the strongest couple, though they're the only ones officially closed off. But everyone else is just on the rocks or weak. And Drina tried to have a conversation with Pepe, see if he was open to exploring. He's like, not really. I feel like I just want to put my energy into Grayson. Otherwise, people aren't going to get the best of me, the full side of me. Pepe keeps saying things and acting in a way we haven't been seeing him much these last few episodes, but Pepe is becoming a favorite of mine for the way he moves and just keeping it real and how he reacts to people and communicates. And Hannah was saying on the Chicks in the Office podcast that something like we didn't see that night after America recoupled Pepe and Hannah together and then Charlie got dumped, that her and Pepe, he stayed up all night, like them just talking and him kind of comforting her and saying, no, I'll stay up and I'll talk to you. I know you're upset. Let's talk. Just whatever you need to say, just talk. I'm here. I'll listen. And they were talking until about, like, she said 10 minutes before they were woken up to go on their date. So they had hours of conversation together and gotten to know each other more. In that. So it wasn't quite as much of a quick switch as it seemed from what we saw on the episode. And so I thought that was really interesting to see and kind of like made me like Pepe more. Landria's exploring Zach. Maya had conversations with the guys about her kind of feeling like Zach's not really putting the effort. He hasn't pulled her for a chat that day. He didn't pull anyone else. He just wants to hang with the boys, wondering if he's here for the right reasons. So we'll see. Landria and Zach had a decent convo down on the dock. Seemed like they said they were both similar, where they don't want to be airing shit and making a big scene in public. They'd rather just have the conversation afterwards if they're upset with each other. And I mean, that's really it. This was the episode of chatting. Not many big things happened. No big fireworks. I felt like everything was bubbling under the surface, but then everything calmed down, which is quite the difference than what we saw earlier in this season. A little more healthy, but makes for a lot more boring TV. So nothing major. I feel like this was like one of those filler episodes. If you're watching episodes as they go, this is one that you would be fine skipping and you won't really miss much. You could probably see the gist of everything that had happened tomorrow night's like recap of what happened previously. This was a pretty quick one. The preview for tomorrow's episode, it says Islanders get to say their piece, and it shows like them putting letters in a mailbox, but it was weird how it was happening. There was like groups of three guys together putting stuff in the mailbox. Maya putting one herself, Nick putting one himself, Sierra putting one himself. I don't know what's going to fucking happen. It kind of makes it seem like instead of them being like, here's what America's been saying and reading tweets, that they're going to make it flip on the Islanders and try to just stir some more drama and shit up in-house. Be like, here's what one of the other Islanders said about you. Who do you think it was? So I don't know. We'll see what happens. So tune into that. The plans for the rest of the week with this. I plan on trying to do one more of these tomorrow night. I have to mow, do yard work, pack after work tomorrow. So we'll see what time that comes out and what that looks like. No episode Wednesday. Thursday and Friday night, I'm going to be on vacation. I'm going to try to do it remotely and throw something together and put it up here. And so do that for Thursday and Friday. If not, Sunday night, I will do a recap, throw that on here of Thursday and Friday's episode. After this week, for the last week and a half, what I will probably do, I'll still try to do nightly ones, throws up those up on YouTube. But for audio platforms, I think I'm going to wait till the end of the week and then group all these nightly recaps together and release that as a massive episode on Friday night. So you're going to have something to listen to on Saturday for After Sun, but that way I'm not clogging up the podcast feed if that's not what you're here for. YouTube allows for more exploring and playlists and segmenting. Podcast platforms don't. So that's going to be the game plan, but follow, subscribe, turn on notifications so you can see when new things are live. I'll be putting my thoughts out here as I'm able to. Wednesday's podcast, I talk about what's new to streaming and theaters in July, so make sure to tune into that. And that's a normal podcast episode that'll drop Wednesday morning. So give you something to listen to, and there's no Love Island. And that's going to do it. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Let me know your thoughts down below. Are these chat episodes with no challenges? Is that what you thrive on? Do you want that conversation? If I had to predict from couples right now who the top 3 will be, I don't fucking know who it'll be. I think it'll be Sierra and Nick, maybe Ace and Shelly. People on social media aren't a fan of Ace. I haven't seen any of the discourse from tonight yet. Maybe things have switched, but Amaya's a fan favorite, so maybe whoever she's in a couple with, if she's able to get a new connection in a couple. I think Elan's looking like he might try to explore her. Chris thinks she's hot too, but I don't think he'll try to explore anything. Maybe Elan and Amaya could pull something off and squeeze in there, but I don't know. I don't see Taylor and Clark getting there. If Taylor and Alondra get back together, I'm not sure. I mean, Serena and Cordell broke up and had some toxic fights of her just going off on him and yelling after Casa, and they ended up winning the whole damn thing. So what do I know? Who knows? We will see what happens. With only a week and a half left, I'm curious if we'll get more bombshells. I think we're due for probably one more drop. They usually do it towards the tail end of the season, and usually it doesn't go anywhere. But this season, with how these couples are, fuck it. Maybe these bombshells will get coupled up and make it to a final 3 couple. I don't know. But give us your predictions, thoughts in the comments. Like I said, audio platforms. You can send us a text on there. Instagram, DM us out. Wow, cannot talk tonight. It is at Down Once More Pod is the handle everywhere. So check us out. Hopefully you enjoyed this. We'll see you next time. Don't forget to go down once more. Later.